right. We are back. I am here. I'm joined by Rob, aka Vanderpump Rob. How you doing? And tell us a bit about yourself and your lovely podcast.
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. I love that I have been able to come on your podcast. Yeah, I'm doing well. My podcast, like you said, Vanderpump Robs, it's a comedic look at reality TV, mainly centered around the Vanderpump Rules universe.
Mhm.
But, you know, sometimes those stars go into other shows like Winter House. And then, of course, I've got to cover all of Winter House season two. It's a really fun project I've been working on through the past couple of years. It's great.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been pretty upfront with you that reality TV is my Achilles heel just because there's so much of it. But the second I started this podcast, everyone wanted Vanderpump blind items, which we talked a bit about when I came on your
Yeah.
show. And I feel like out of all reality requests I get, obviously Kardashians exist, but I feel like they kind of, I don't know, they're almost kind of separate than reality TV because they are
Yeah.
such, characters. But Housewives and Vanderpump Rules are kind of like neck and neck from what I hear from people who are into this world. Is that what you would say is true? Like the 1 and 2 slots?
Yeah, I would say so. I think like the weird like outlier maybe moon to the reality planet would be like the Bachelor franchise.
Oh,
But I
duh.
consider
Yeah.
but I consider those more like game shows where the
Yes.
prize is fake love, you
I
know?
know.
and uh and the thing is that like it's when you get into the minutia of it, Housewives and Vanderpump Rules, obviously Bravo properties, you know, edited in similar ways, similar styles, but so incredibly different as shows, you know, and most people who like that like both of them, but some people will veer one way or the other on the Venn diagram of them.
Can I ask, when you say that they're kind of similar, let's say that you had to make a bingo card for watching a Bravo show. Is there some sort of formula where it's like once a week a drink has to be thrown in a face, hair has to be pulled, you have to use this many swear words? Is there kind of motifs or themes that encompass all Bravo shows, or does it differ with each series?
I think that like on a grand scale, yeah, that like, and especially like back in the 2010s to 2015s, you'd get more of the hair pulling and drink throwing, I would
Don't you kind
say.
of miss that? Although
Yeah.
we
Oh
are going
yeah.
to be talking about someone in specific, and she did slap someone. I watched that on
Oh
YouTube.
yes. And we'll talk about it, but depending on where you go to find the title of that episode, it
Yeah.
has retroactively been changed. But we'll get there. We'll
Interesting.
get there. Yeah, I would say that um, a lot of one motif on the bingo card would definitely be the in the moments or the talking heads. They are, I would say, different than most reality shows. Like, of course, you're going to get interview segments on, say, like a Bachelor or any sort of game show, but the way they're shot and the way that the producers are interacting with them, I don't know, just has a little it's
Are
different
you talking about
feel.
the confessional where
Yeah, like the
like,
confessionals. Yeah.
yeah,
Whereas on like,
interesting.
I don't know, I would also say intros to the shows. Like the
Mm.
Housewives always come with like a tagline, you know, like, oh, here I am. And I'm not afraid to be pricked by a thorn or whatever. And
Yes.
but Vanderpump Rules specifically has this just like slow mo. We're all entering this world. Look how cool we are. No taglines needed, and you don't really get that. I would say. I mean, someone's going to argue with me, but
Yeah.
they're unique to this style of editing for sure.
Rob, have you watched 30 Rock?
I have.
Okay, you know when they do Queen of Jordan?
Actually, I don't. It has probably
Oh
been
my God.
7 years. So
It's so good. So Angie, Tracy Jordan's character on the
yeah.
show, does the reality show Queen of Jordan, and she's pitching it to
Yes.
Liz, and she goes, I have a cousin who's on meth and escaped jail, and I have an alcoholic friend, but she's also pregnant, and she's also a stripper, and she's basically trying to pitch this show, and everyone has the character of, Portia reads the papers, or Angie's catchphrase of what was it? Something like "I like ham" or something, but
Yes,
it
I'm
was
remembering this
yeah.
now. God, that show is genius.
It was just so, do you ever think of, if you had to be on a reality show, what type of character you would embody or what your catchphrase would be?
Oh my God. Yes. Here's the thing. There's like the director in my head makes me the main character, right? So I
Yeah.
think I would be on a
Or at
show,
least
and
like in the top 4 type of,
of
yeah.
course, I would kind of want to no. I feel like I would come into this thing and be the person who would want to get the party started,
Okay.
but also want to leave early. So I would be almost like an instigator, I think. I would
Totally. Oh, like little finger, but like at the
yes.
club. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I think I would like not I would try and like push that away if it was like my first season, like, no, I don't do that. I'm just trying to like start conversations. But then by second or third season, that would just be my entire personality
I
and know
think,
that I'm getting that paycheck.
oh, totally. I think, and this just came to me now, but I think whoever you were freshman year of college might be the most accurate to who you would be on a reality show, because that's when, you're thrust into this place, you don't know
Yeah.
everyone, but your reputation is kind of made up for you based on how you act. What were you like freshman year of college?
Wow. Yeah. That is, first of all, genius because I
There we go.
completely
Only
agree.
genius only here. Moving forward.
I
Very
completely
highbrow.
agree.
Yeah.
That was me getting out from like under the thumb of my small town life and
Mm,
family, right?
mm.
So I'm going to college. I'm getting more into like the punk scene. I'm getting more into like, but not like Mohawk punk, more like, that sort of like quasi emo, quasi hardcore, quasi whatever, like indie rock, Saddle Creek. You know, I'm not into mainstream culture sort of
Yes.
vibe, but also I love the Beastie Boys and I like sass punk, which is like, kind of flamboyantly screaming into
Sass punk.
microphone.
Yeah, never heard of
Yeah, there
that
was a
one.
band I really liked called the Blood Brothers back in the
Okay.
day. And they were very, I don't know how I want to say it, like screamy, yelly, loud, rock and roll, but also like might wave their finger at you in a dancey
Oh,
sort of way. And
okay.
I think that sort of like rebellion that I went through made me realize that I wanted to be the life of the party. I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to be like making noise, but not necessarily a musician. And I
Yes,
do
yeah.
think that would definitely embody who I would be on a reality show for sure. What about
Okay.
you?
The theory holds true then. My freshman year of college, I won 2 superlatives in my college. Out of the entire college, I got awarded biggest flirt. And then
Ooh,
out of my year, I got freshman lush. So what can I say? I liked to drink and chat with people, So I think
hey,
on a reality TV show, I would just be flirting away, but somebody's got to do it. Somebody has to do that role.
hell yeah. I mean, Lala Kent got a Range Rover from Randall Emmett for flirting. I think it was
Sounds like she
just
did.
flirting,
Sounds
right?
like she
Yeah.
did a bit more than flirting, but I mean,
Hmm.
I've only seen a
I'm
couple
not trying to equate you to
episodes.
Lala. I'm so sorry.
Are you kidding me? In college, like, yeah. But we are going to be diving today into Stassi Schroeder. That's how you pronounce it correctly, right?
That's what
And
I've heard.
this is like totally kismet because I was at a friend's wedding last weekend and I ended up bringing a bunch of books down with me because I knew that I just wanted junk food books. And I had Stassi's book, the one where she talks about her cancellation, Off with Her Head.
Mm-hmm.
So it's perfect timing that we're going to be talking about her. I've got so many thoughts. Before we get into it, what would you say if you had to categorize her into just her role on the show? Like what trope
Mm.
she played into?
I think there's an argument for the first half of the show that she was the main character. She was the star.
Oh,
Um, Now, granted, it's an ensemble, but many of the story threads flowed through Stassi, and I think it's because she put herself in that position as like main character attitude, right? Main character persona. And it's funny you say like with Off with Her Head, like the like post cancellation, rectifying, dealing with what she did. I just finished her first book, Next Level Basic, which
Jesus Christ.
has the exact same story. Like not
Yes,
exact
that's
same,
what
but
she
she had
mentioned
an
in the second. Like
yeah.
she's gotten canceled like every 2-3 years or something.
And it's one of those things where you're just like, you gotta learn, like, I mean, do whatever the hell you want, I guess, but you would think a lesson would be learned at
We know
some
there's a
point.
third book coming. I would
Oh
literally
yeah.
bet my life on it, you know? Like,
And let me ask you this, and I'll get back a little bit to the original question, but like, didn't I've skimmed off with her head, but like, both of these books feel like long form iPhone notes apology for Twitter, right? Like, you know, when someone has to write their long apology for being canceled, like that's just kind of with like fluff in between.
I actually think it's more poorly written than a notes apology. Like, I'm
Damn,
so
yeah.
like, I can read a lot of crap. I love crappy books. I really do.
Sure.
I love a junk food book. It's my favorite type of thing. I actually didn't even finish her book. It was so hard to get through, and I'm praying to God that it was ghostwritten by an actual idiot. I'm being so harsh right now, but
Well,
every
Patreon.
other word in the book was AF. She's like, when
Oh
I
my
was
God.
canceled AF, blah blah
That,
blah.
that's the
Was it in the
same
first too?
in the first one. Like I started counting how many times I heard it per chapter. Well, because I was listening and reading. So
It's not
um
humanly possible to use the phrase AF that much. I'm like, is she sponsored by Big AF and she's getting kickbacks or something? Like, there's no possible reason. Like, totes AF. And I get that her whole thing is being a basic bitch and being proud of it, but be proud of grammar too. Be proud of
well, yeah.
vocabulary.
Absolutely. And not to mention like or to totally mention, I
To totes
was
mention if you want to
to
talk like
totes
her.
mention AF.
AF.
I don't know. I go back and forth on this, but like I wonder if she, when creating at least the first book, if she knew how cemented in time it would be.
Mm.
And, you know, if someone were to find this book in 50 years and see a reference to Dub Smash, the app, would they
Oh
have
my God, Dub Smash. I forgot
any
about it.
idea? Exactly. And this is
Yeah.
what, 4 years old? You know,
Yeah.
it's wild. And I wonder if throughout the book, if that thought even came up, because as I was reading the AFs and the totes and the, you know, whatever, you I keep thinking like, did she write a chapter or a collection of pages but not reference anything previous that she wrote? You know, did it just go to the editor and then they compiled it?
Or you mean go to the ghostwriter? I mean, let's
Or
be
the
honest, how much
ghostwriter?
of this
Yeah,
did we think she wrote? Like, even people like Michelle Obama have their books ghostwritten, and
sure.
if we're going to take a reality star, their ability to write, I don't think it's on par or greater than Michelle Obama. So I would say that I don't know. I could say the entire thing could be ghostwritten, and it could just be something where you meet with someone and for an hour over Zoom, you tell them what you want to say and they end up writing it for you. I mean, at
And they
least I would hope, because nobody on earth writes like that. And I've texted with, my teenage neighbors and stuff, and even they don't text like that.
and it almost feels like writing as a personality too. Like if she were to be the one writing it, like maybe it's like putting up this like mask of who I am and like, well, this is how quote Stassi would write this. You know, this is
Yeah.
how
Well, which was
uh
fascinating for me because, I haven't really seen that
yeah,
many episodes of the show. So my first introduction to Stassi, other than having heard about her cancellation over the years, really was this book. And it did not put a good taste in my mouth because,
no.
she just came across as so stupid. And should we talk about her cancellations?
Yeah, I totally do, but I just to make sure that like yes, she was the main character,
Oh, yeah,
but
yeah.
she was like so far beyond the person me that I would want to watch on the show. Like, yes,
Mm.
storylines are integral, but I was way more into seeing what like Sheena Shea was up to, or Kristen Doty, who is like right, like if Stassi is Lucifer, uh Kristen Doty is like but Hazel Meth or whatever that other devil is, you know,
Yeah.
but anyway, the Latin one. Um, it it wasn't enticing to see a mean girl be the main character, you know, and I say that colloquially. Everything grew around, and I think even producers probably started realizing like we have so much more than the people we're trying to showcase in this first and second season.
Yeah,
Isn't
she did mention in her book that her and somebody else were I forget the phrase she used, but she basically said, "Oh, hero characters." And then when she gave a quote about that, a lot of people were like, "What the hell are you talking about? You're the
yeah.
opposite of the hero." But apparently that's producer terminology to say that the hero characters are the ones that are included in every single episode, even if it's just for a couple of
Oh,
scenes.
that would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then wow, this show, it's just weird. I'm going through all of these like evolution of like the characters, but that's for my podcast. We're here to talk about
Yes.
her
Yeah.
cancellations.
Yes, and
Yeah.
all of her blinds, because some of them are
Oh
pretty,
God.
I mean, it's in a direct contradiction to her book, but I wouldn't, base her book to be scientific fact. So the reason I wanted to read this book is I'm always interested in cancellations and how people handle it, and everything like that, because influencers is kind of the one industry where it exists. You don't really see, I don't know, the United Airlines CEO or like the Chase VP getting canceled. It's just kind of firings and headline articles, and that's it.
Yeah.
So she's obviously had a lot of mistakes in her life. You could back me up on this for the first book, but she references this in the second book, that she posted some photo on Instagram with her initials SS and called it Nazi chic or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And in the book, she talks about how since she's from Louisiana and a Southern gal, that they monogram everything, which maybe, I don't know. I think
Yeah,
rich people
monograms are big
monogram.
down there. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. They do it in the Northeast too.
Yeah,
I think it
exactly.
is a rich person thing.
But um she said that it was like a joke between her friends that she was Nazi chic and that they would like laugh and of course weren't serious about it. But to not be able to like see the forest for the trees of like putting that on a post to
Well, can I ask something really stupid?
yeah.
Is SS Nazi terminology or something?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is. And, I'm sure the listeners can Google it and whatnot. But like they were like the soldiers, right? That's at least my understanding of it.
Gotcha.
And
I knew that you just shouldn't put Nazi chic on anything ever,
oh,
but I wasn't
true.
sure. I was like, is this some sort of like KKK with the alliteration? I wasn't, I was like, she's so dumb, she even got that wrong. But no, I'm the
Yeah.
dumb one. I didn't know what it
Well,
was.
but also like here's the thing. Stassi's name is like I believe Anastasia. So if she were to monogram something, wouldn't it be AS?
Yeah.
And so
Ass.
maybe I can see why she wouldn't put that on her OOTD. But I think that there is a complete gap in logic to think that like your joke that's not even that good, let's face it, between your friends to then put out to public and then be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe all of these people are like take me serious on this." Like give me a fucking break, you know?
Yeah. I think
It's
that's what you see with a lot of people too. And I think it's so easy for that to happen to influencers, because I know some influencers where they are on their phone every second of their life, truly documenting everything, which makes some people so tantalizing to follow. But then it's also this really creepy line of, okay, everything you post, how long are you looking at it and giving it approval? Point
yeah.
0.5 seconds before you do it. So I think all of these influencers, it's just like bizarro. They don't know, they don't have that, like, I don't know, cognitive reasoning or thought. They just post everything, which sometimes is fascinating because then you get to see, oh, what kind of fucked up shit is in everybody's brain if they're just posting it.
Yep.
Turns out there's a lot of stuff.
It gives a whole new term to like hashtag no filter, right? There's
Yeah. So
zero filter.
since you read her first book, and then we'll talk about her second, and like the bigger cancellation, how did she, what was her excuse for it? Like, what did she do? How did she address it?
If memory serves, she admits to not knowing a lot about history. She knew that Nazis were bad, but she didn't know, same with like the SS thing, that like ignorance, you know, um, quickly learning from it and understanding how stupid it was when she started getting dirty looks walking around on a European vacation with a giant SS on her army jacket. And that she had to reevaluate, how she presented herself in this world. And like,
But
very
doesn't that
like,
drive you insane? Because like, if
yes,
you know what SS is and you know it enough to put Nazi chic, then how would you say ignorance? I
yeah,
don't know.
I think that it's a lot of rationalizing once you
Yeah.
get called out on bullshit for being edgy. It's one of those things where I totally see, at least from the personality presented through
Yeah, I'm
all of
gonna
her
look up her
content.
jacket, by the way, while we're
Oh yeah.
let's
um
see.
and I'm gonna look up the official God, please don't come for me.
Oh, so there's three of them. Let's see.
Yeah.
Appropriate redo. Criminal chic, Tupac chic, Elsa, Indiana Jones chic. Oh, and she's got SS as a keychain on her purse.
And they were I just Googled it and I went to the History Channel, so I know it's true. It's like Hitler's personal army. So, yeah,
Ah,
terrible.
Nazi. Also, for her to do an appropriate redo, like, wouldn't you think just take it down, not like
Yes.
do a redo?
It's
Oh my God. This is the most vapid photo I've seen in my life.
she has I mean, here's the thing. Even what we see on the TV show when her parents show up, like her dad has, like, I think in the first season, a flask he brings to brunch that has a gun on it and asks her, the new guy you're dating is not a Democrat, right? Like, whatever
Oh God.
affiliation you may be, like, I don't give a like, I mean, I give a shit, but
Yeah.
like the fact that he wants to, like, that just shows you the family she was raised in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Her parents would probably look at Nazi chic and say, "Go right ahead, honey." You know what I mean?
Hilarious. I get it,
Oh God,
Yeah.
bizarro. Okay, so then in her book she says, "I was ignorant. Now I know, I guess." So I
Yeah,
don't know.
essentially.
Did she say that what? She took a 10th grade history class and now she knows better? Like,
Essentially, no, she just did some research. She did her own
oh,
research
okay.
and,
So
like,
she
and
read a
knows that it was
Wikipedia
wrong.
page.
Yeah,
Good
she knows it was
God.
wrong now. Yeah.
Well, so
It,
it continues years later. This is where the book that I picked up. So correct me if I'm wrong. This is my understanding of it. She's on Vanderpump Rules. There's another cast member on there named Faith Stowers.
Stowers, but yeah.
Stowers. And Stassi gave herself away on a podcast
Yup.
years after this incident happened, where she basically admits on a podcast that she ended up calling the cops on this woman, Faith, because she had heard rumors from people that Faith had stolen from them. Then on the news, she saw that there was a woman as a suspect who had stolen $300,000 of items from stores, I believe, and she had tattoos and things like that. Stassi and her friend Kristen, right,
Mm-hmm.
get drunk at brunch at Gracias Madre, and they convince themselves that it's Faith, and they think they're, quote, solving a crime, and they call the police to
Yeah.
report Faith, even though they have no idea who this woman is involved in the crime. And they continue in the video clip to say that it was so hard to get a hold of the cops. So then they called a different police department. They really wouldn't give up. And they kept calling and calling. And then later on, a friend was at an event that Faith was at. And I think they called the cops again. And they said,
Yep.
Faith is here.
Yeah, it's insane. And it goes on for weeks. Like you're saying, they
Yeah, this
end up
wasn't
being at
like
an
a
event.
one-time
No.
whoopsie, like Jesus. Yeah.
Like, you totally can see the scene, right? They're at brunch, they're having mimosas, they're talking shit on their friends and their frenemies and all the people that they have to work with all the time. They may not like Faith. Who knows? Who absolutely knows? But like, they start getting this little bug, right? Like, oh, we've seen this woman. I heard that she stole James Kennedy's jacket. And I heard this. And like, oh, did you hear about this other woman who has a similar tattoo to Faith steal $300,000 and drug some people in West Hollywood? And
Yeah,
blah, blah,
drug
blah.
two men.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And then Kristen, like, gets bit by the bug even harder, and she's like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna like call the cops, or we're gonna do this, all allegedly. I don't know exactly how the conversation goes, but yeah, we both
Yeah.
saw that YouTube video, and it's Stassi telling the story and like bragging about how they were playing detective essentially. And then when she says, and this went on for weeks, Kristen came back and said, I've tried this other police department. And it's like, why on earth why can't you let it go? You know what I mean? Like, why do
Yeah.
they need to like completely eviscerate someone on a hunch because they don't get along with them?
And also too, Stassi in her book was basically saying this, maybe it was a race thing to Faith, but because I'm white, I have a different experience with the cops, so I didn't know. It wasn't about race for me. It was about just the gossip and the drama of the show. But that video clip was loaded with microaggressions, the
Oh
way she
yeah.
she loves her wigs and things like that. And the way that she talked about disparagingly about Faith being homeless and
Mm-hmm.
going from couch to couch, and then also saying that Lala Kent would plant things in her apartment to see if Faith would steal them. That's crazy stuff. That's like, you guys are insane.
Yeah, this is like, we don't want to admit how horrible we are, but we want to talk about all the shitty things of other people that we have projected onto them. It's
Yeah.
it's so like, first of all, I think I wrote you this when we were talking about some notes, like, it's the epitome of confirmation bias. We want Faith to be the criminal here. So everything we talk about leads to Faith being the criminal.
Well, and also things she hasn't even done. Like Lala would plant things in her apartment to see if Faith would steal them. Okay. And she never did. Like, you're not
Yeah.
going to talk about how the experiment went wrong, but instead you're going to phrase it in a way where it's like, but I had to do this to see if she would blah, blah, blah. Okay. And she never did. You guys look like an
Yep.
idiot. Like, you're
Yep.
dumb. It was wrong. And they still can't admit that even at the time of the podcast recording. It's like craziness.
Oh, 100%. And it all, like, I think boils down to, well, not, there's a lot to it, but
Yeah.
within Vanderpump Rules, like, Jax, who is Stassi's ex, who cheats on Stassi in like the first season, and it's this huge blow up with Kristen, by the way. Jax ends up having another woman named Brittany who he gets engaged to, and he cheats on her with Faith. And so Faith, knowing that this is all going to come back at her on a reality show, this is my tinfoil hat theory, right? The fact is that Faith opens up her voice memos app after Jax and her have sex and records what Jax says to her.
Oh, but was he like, I fucked you so good last night or something?
Well, I think it starts with that. And then he starts talking about how he's not in love with his girlfriend. He hates being on the show. He hates all of this. And she's like, you can totally, like, at least from my side, see what Faith's doing. She's like, okay, I fucked this guy. And now he's like, he's going to use this against me. I'm going to be the villain. So I need to have something.
This show is crazy, by the way. Like, how can these people are psycho to each other? And
yes.
Only the episode I watched with you, something similar happened where after these people have sex with each other, one of them passes out and the other stays up and sets up a ring light and then like takes photographic evidence that they boinked and stuff. It's like, you guys are crazy.
You should definitely listen to the episode where Jax's girlfriend gets the voice memo of Faith saying all of this.
Yeah.
It might be one of, all of the terrible things aside, might be one of the best and most entertaining episodes of Vanderpump Rules because everyone's drunk at an apartment party. So of course they're in tight space.
Yeah.
And someone at 2 a.m. goes, I think I need to show Brittany this voice memo. And
beautiful. I mean, reality TV gold, to be honest.
Exactly.
Now, I do always think people, maybe in the name of trying to be good feminists and stuff like that, don't talk about how boys do play into girls' drama. So I could totally see there being a side where Stassi's like, I once dated Jax, and like, now that you've slept with him, XYZ. I always think about that, like when people talk about how there's the feud between Taylor Swift and Katy Perry, they
Mhm.
always go, it's about backup dancers. I go, how about the fact that he dated both of them? And with Taylor
Mhm.
Swift, he was Mr. Emotionally Unavailable. And with Katy Perry, they were wearing matching Christmas sweaters on The Ellen Show. I'm sure that had something to do with a little bit of a feud, but nobody talks about it. You know, it at least adds a little bit of kindling to the fire.
100%. The thing here is that, like, I don't know, like, I don't know these people. I have to find the information the same way everyone else does. But when you start, like, thinking about interpersonal relationships yourself, you do look back and you go, like, well, why would I be pissed off at someone? Oh, because I've had an experience like X, Y, or Z, right? And so I'm not a perfect human being. I know, it's shocking, but, like,
It's
the
crazy.
thing is that, like, you get to a certain point where you have to, like, reflect on your actions and either learn from them or pretend like you fucked up and you move on and you push it behind you. And I just think a lot of these people don't actively learn from mistakes. They just keep pushing forward and keep just either burying it, say an insincere apology, and just try and get the next deal, you know?
Yeah. And what I found really interesting, that whole thing about the next deal, is that in this book, I read about 60% of it, but you know, the juice of what she talks about is in the
Yeah.
first 15%. Um,
Same with the
sh-
other one.
yeah, right. As if there's any juice at
Yeah.
all. But she was saying how terrifying it was to now be in this house without deals coming in and things like that. I do find it confusing because I would think, first of all, these people must be bad with money. If you're buying like a $3 million house, but if you can't work 1 month, then everything's tits up. Well, then you should
Yep.
have bought a $1 million house and been secure financially. So you have no sympathy from me on that. And also, she talked so much about the cancellation and how it affected her and the paparazzi and all of this stuff. And it really did come across as poor me, poor me. And
Hmm.
there, I don't, maybe this was in the first book, but to even get to the point where then you could fuck up and be canceled, like, you've had an incredibly privileged life. And I don't know, just when people go, I work my ass off to be on this reality show where I don't have to memorize lines and somebody follows me around and like my hair and makeup is done and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It's just, I think that everyone can learn and change, but I feel like we're already coming off of a pretty irredeemable personality and characteristic basic. And then for this to happen, it's like, I don't know, we might have to kind of scratch the whole thing down and rebuild. This isn't just like a chimney that needs adjusting.
I totally agree. And, I'm with you. I think that everyone is redeemable. I think that they have the ability to be so, but when you constantly make mistakes, it starts to look like all of your previous apologies are completely insincere. And
Yeah.
we haven't even talked about when she made comments about Oscars so white and the Me Too movement. And
Yeah.
those are in between. Like, we're just talking about the bookends, you
Which, by
know?
the way, I always find that so baffling whenever people get upset about topics that don't even involve them. Like Vince Vaughn was talking about how he doesn't believe in affirmative action for colleges. And it's like, first of all, shut the fuck up. You're not even
Yeah,
applying to college. Or Stassi being like, oh, Oscar's so white. I'm sorry, are you a fucking actress? Like, why are you
no
even
shit.
speaking on this? It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So you're right. There's just like a very obvious history of this. And she
Yeah.
did say that in the second book, she hired a diversity and race coach and kind of like a therapist. Once a week, she would meet with them for an hour and ask questions. And I do think that's a good route to take,
Sure.
especially if, you know, I'm sure growing up, right? Like, at least for me,
Yeah.
we really did not talk about race when I was growing up. It was that whole idea of, you know, you need to see people for their character and not the color of
Oh,
their
sure.
skin, which I think is completely the wrong way to go about it. But I don't know. I just think that even that wouldn't be enough. And I'm curious to know what is going on with her now. I know that she still has a podcast that's successful because I've seen her feature on other people's. So I would assume everything's kind of back to normal with her since
Well,
this.
I think the podcast only recently, like, came back. Like,
Okay.
it was dormant for quite some time. I don't choose to listen to that, but
Yeah.
I do get the pop-ups, you know, all of that content, like all of us, comes into our feeds, and it feels like she's coming back in terms of like to her own fan base. Like, I think it's becoming a little bit more realistic that, like, yeah, my podcast is back. I had a book deal, and those of you who want to listen can tune in, but it doesn't sound like anyone's asking her to be on TV anymore or provide any sponsored posts, really.
And she mentioned in her book, sorry about the siren, Bo, that's her husband, right?
Yes. Yeah.
She was saying that he also lost out on different opportunities, deals. Do you know what he's doing for work?
I think he's still like, if I remember correctly, he's a casting agent or works for some sort of casting company. When he's not, you know, posting about football and stuff and getting paid for that. Um, I think he's still doing that. I don't think he actually like lost his job. I think that maybe he lost being able to do a fraction of the sponsored posts he had done in the past, which doesn't seem like much for Bo when he has a job, you know?
Yeah. Not to mention, I always wonder too if these people, I don't know, I just think it's so embarrassing to complain about something online and publicly, just in general, right? It's
Oh
always
yeah.
embarrassing to complain. I just think to yourself, wouldn't you sell your house and move into a smaller one rather than keep the big one, complain about it, and then not be able to afford it? It's almost like a sickness these rich people have, just, I don't know, be one of the normies, get a nine to
Yeah.
five, but that's like impossible for them to even comprehend.
Well, it's like admitting defeat, right? It's like,
Mm,
this is who I am, and this is who I've built myself up to be, you know. And if I have to even take two steps back down, that is me failing. And I think it all comes back to this sort of mentality of not being able to actively learn and grow as a human being, because if you can't do what's best for your family, you know, then because it might be an ego check, then
mm,
what are you doing? You're
yeah.
completely right. Like, you have a child now, you know, like it shouldn't be about you not being able to afford your house. Like, sorry, get a house you can afford. And that's easy to say for me on my end. I don't know all these details, but really, like, you said it perfectly. No one wants to hear you complain when there is another way. You know, it's the equivalent of me seeing someone tweeting at Delta like, you know, how are you going to fix this? It's like, no,
Yeah.
no one needs to see your complaints about that.
Isn't that so? Whenever I see stuff like that, I'm like, ooh, we've all been that person rage tweeting at an
Oh,
airline,
sure.
but it's so, I mean, you wish there was an option to be like, and have nobody see this but them, because
Yeah.
when you see other people's, you're always
Yeah.
like, loser, but we've all
Oh,
done it.
totally. Oh, I've been there too. But it's like, you want that the ability to be like, and delete this automatically in 24 hours. I just need them
Yep.
to see it.
Yeah. And what I also found crazy too in her book was that the absurdity and the, I don't know what other word to use other than privilege, because I am looking for a little bit of a different word here. But even when she was giving breakup advice, she goes, previously, when my heart was broken, I would just go to Nordstrom, have an espresso martini, and buy myself a new pair of shoes. I'm sure
Exact
we would
same
all love to
line.
do that. Why in the
Exact
Oh,
same line.
really?
Yeah.
Isn't it just like, it's like, okay, so what, you think we all have like $500 just laying around? Like, there were so many moments in the book I just wanted to reach through the pages and slap her, you know?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And this is the content she puts out to be likable and relatable and have a good first impression. So if that's your likability, I can't even imagine who you are on the inside. I would almost rather you then be a villain slapping someone on TV than try to be this shiny pearl of a person who's new and improved and now knows everything about privilege and blah blah blah. You know what? Just go back to being a whore on TV that I can laugh at. Was she
Yeah,
a whore? I
slap
don't even
people.
know.
No, not as much. But she was like a total mean jerk who slapped people and was
And a
very vengeful. You
slappy
know.
mean jerk
Yeah.
vengeful, you know? But yeah, so it's just, I don't know. I think that's frustrating because like you can't brand yourself as a good person if you're not even a good person. Like that's
Yeah.
just so frustrating. Well, should
It's
we
the
get into some
mask.
of
It's
her
the facade. Oh, sorry.
well, I was just gonna say, should we get into some of the blinds? Because I feel like there's
Yes.
who you are, who you present yourself to be, and the blinds sometimes give us a little bit of insight into this. So some of these ones are old and they have not come true anymore, but there was an interesting part to this first one. So this is about her and her husband. It says, with the firing, there will be no marriage. The wedding was only going to happen if it was televised, free, and they were paid for their participation. Give them both lie detectors and ask the bar stars if the couple ever had sex. The answer would be no. So in her book, she says that they actually weren't going to pay for the wedding. Who knows if she's telling the truth? She said that they were going to pay for the area that they had it at, but they weren't going to pay for the flights or the celebration, anything like that. What I'm interested in is this section that says, ask if the bar stars, if the couple has ever had sex. Did you get very like PDA vibes from watching them on the show or no?
Yeah, I mean, like that was actually very surprising to me. And I know that like sex lives are different for every couple, but like it did not ever seem like they didn't have sex. You know, it
Yeah.
didn't ever seem like they wouldn't. It seemed like they fought a lot when they were on the show.
Yeah.
But that was a surprise to me. I do have one interesting piece of information about the wedding though.
Ooh,
Um,
spill.
one of the people on the show, Peter Madrigal, who's like the manager, he's got the long ponytail. If you ever watch it, he's actually a buddy of mine. He was during lockdown. He would do Instagram lives with me when he found out I had the podcast, right? So
Oh,
then
so
when I
cool.
moved to LA, he was like, "Hey, come to a barbecue I'm having." And I'm like, "Oh my God, okay." And like no one else from the show, no one cares. You know, Peter, maybe it's
Yeah.
because he's an actual employee of the restaurant, like is a little bit more down to earth. But Peter was invited to the wedding. He was planning on going to the wedding, and we were doing a Spotify live at one point together. And he was like, "Oh, I just got an email that is disinviting me from the wedding." And it wasn't even personally addressed to Peter. It was a BCC to like a bunch of people. And it looked like a wedding invite, but it was a wedding disinvite. And to be fair, during lockdown, shook up a lot of people's plans. I get
Yeah.
all of that. But bringing it back, AF was used in the disinvite like twice.
You're disinvited AF.
Yeah, it's like, this crazy year has been weird AF, so we've had to restructure some stuff. And it's like that's also like diminishing absolutely everything that happened during the pandemic.
People are dying AF.
Yes, exactly.
It's totes tragic.
But I totally would get that, like, but that is partially this blind too, like they
Yeah.
had planned on part of it being paid for. And
Yeah.
then when they get fired and nothing's happening, like, oh shit, we need to like figure out, I guess we're not doing an Italian wedding or whatever it was going to be.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
this one I definitely believe. It says the illiterate, now former bar star thinks she has suffered enough and served her punishment and doesn't understand why companies don't want to work with her. And you definitely got that vibe.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
like a week into her cancellation in the book, she was like, why is everybody still mad?
Yeah.
Girl, are you stupid?
Totally stupid. Like it, it just shows you how closed off and how and I get this from a lot of, like, I was listening to Kristen Doty's podcast the other day. It's like some of these people,
Which, by the way, did she get as much shit as Stassi or not really because she wasn't the one speaking about it on the podcast? I know that she was also fired.
yeah, she was also fired. I think that like right around the time she got fired was when her book came out too. So I think it like really financially affected her. Um, but the thing is that like these people, I get so frustrated. Like I had to delete the podcast because they just think that their experience is like the universal experience. And because they think something in one way, it's unfeasible to think that like other people might have a different opinion. So like,
You know what else
I've
I
learned.
just realized, by the way?
Huh.
The fact that you said that her book came out during her cancellation, if you look on a timeline, because 2020 was when the Stassi situation happened, And I know when her book came out, she probably waited a couple months and then started talking to people about making a book. So it's not like she
Oh
was
yeah.
sitting at home for 4 months learning and educating herself and trying to, you know, really
Yep.
figure out what happened and how she could do better. You know that she already had plans for
Oh
the
yeah.
book and was going to try to monetize off of what happened. And I mean, that's what happened. Off with her head. It's the entire thing of the book.
Yeah, it's 100% that. And of course, I'm sure in dealing with, I've had very few of these, but like in book deals, it's like, well, what can we do to like build this out? What can we do to like make sure that like you're presenting yourself in the best light? It's like, I think you
Yeah.
should get this therapist, and I think you should, that's how I would see that going down.
Yeah. Oh god, now I'm so fascinated to know, like, how long after everything did she start speaking to someone and say, you'd also think too, after everything she did, is a portion of the book profit going to help with some cause? Like, I don't know, for
It
the fact
should.
that
I
people
I
of
doubt
color
it.
have
Yeah.
longer jail sentences than white people in America, things like that. It's just,
But how would she pay her mortgage if she was giving part of her money away,
isn't
you
that
know?
insane? Oh, wait, can we talk about the blind item that I don't think is true, but, like, it does kind of allude to how she could pay it, this fourth one here. This former bar star slash fairly new mother is starting an OnlyFans page because she knows she will never be invited back to the show and thinks it is the easiest way to make a lot of money. It is probably an easy way to make a lot of money for her because I'm
Sure.
sure, she does have those fans. But I think, I mean, obviously that didn't happen.
I
And
don't
I
think
don't
so.
think I would see that happening either, too.
I don't either. And I don't think she's as like open about like her sexuality. Like, I mean, she writes about it and stuff, but like I just don't think that's a line she would cross. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I agree with you too.
Now, some of
Um,
the other people on who got fired, maybe, but not Stassi.
Yeah. Well, this one about her and Kristen. It says, speaking of set up pap shoots, the two fired bar stars set up one in their never ending attempt to rehab their image, which will ultimately be unsuccessful. And in her second book, she writes about being hounded by the paparazzi. They're outside of her house all the time, following her around, trying to get pictures. I was just thinking, like, is she really that big of a deal? I feel
No,
like a lot of those paparazzi shots were called on. Like, are the
100%.
yeah, right? The Vanderpump stars can't be that big of a deal that tons of people would be staked outside of their house. Maybe for the Adam Levine Beati situation, but I can't
Sure.
imagine for this one.
No, no. I mean, like I was at the restaurant. I was at Sir when they were taping the finale of the season that's about to come out. There was no paparazzi. There was no anyone who gave a shit about anything. And
Yeah.
like, if I found out that they were filming that day, like paparazzi, of course, would be able to find that out. And
Yeah.
every cast member was there. So that would be a prime spot. So to think that like a fired cast member is being hounded on a Wednesday at their house when they're doing nothing,
And she acted like they
totally
were there for weeks. Like, I had to hole myself up in the basement. I was scared to even go on the ground level. We had to buy new curtains. I'm just like,
nah.
I don't
This
think
is like
so.
when Angelina Jolie called Us Magazine to get photos of her and Brad. You know,
Yes.
that's exactly
Yes.
what this is.
100%. Okay, this illiterate fired bar star is going around town telling people producers are interested in her and all fighting to do a reality show deal with her. No, they aren't. I believe that. I think that in this world, you kind of have to act like you have something before you actually have it. In Hollywood, you're
Mhm.
kind of like always stepping up the ladder, not knowing that the rung is going to be there and hoping that if you talk enough about the rung, it will just appear.
Yeah, I think that I follow Jax for the sheer hilariousness of it, and anytime he does like an AMA on Instagram, there's it's like a Finsta account that's asking some of these
Oh,
questions,
yeah, like
but
what's your
like
next big
yeah,
project?
yeah,
Or
like
when are we
when
going
are
to
we
see
gonna
you?
yep, when are you gonna, and like he'll answer it but like won't say anything, but will like raise his eyebrows like maybe sooner than you think, and it's like no, we won't.
Isn't it so stupid? You can tell when people write in their own
Yeah.
ask because they have like an answer for it perfectly.
Yep.
And like I do AMA, nobody's ever asking about what, like, I mean, people are nice. People are sometimes like, how you doing? But nobody's ever like, Shannon, like, when can we expect like the blah, blah, blah. It's
Yeah,
always just like,
exactly.
what's going on with Zendaya?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I thought this one was funny because it kind of blends the worlds. Lindsay Lohan had an interesting discussion last night with this cable reality star. When I say discussion, I mean arguing. Apparently, there is a recent client that the cable reality star snagged that Lindsay really wanted for herself. If they had been in any other location, I have no doubt they would have had more than just words for each other. And I think this was back in like 2017. So
Mm.
this would have been like way before she met Beau, but this is basically alleging that Stassi's doing a little bit of yachting and took one of
Mm.
Lindsay's yacht boys. Do you believe it?
Honestly, I don't believe it would be Stassi.
Oh, okay.
I think I just don't see.
They did say cable reality star. They didn't say illiterate. So it could have been
Yeah,
another one.
Lala has a history
Yeah,
of
that's what I've heard.
yachting. I would say it's that, but you never know. Especially in between quasi successful partners, maybe you want to go on a boat. And I could also see Stassi being like ignorant to the fact of like the social contract that's going on with yachting.
Yeah, and her
And
being like, I'm on a boat because I'm hot. And it's like, wait until the
uh-huh.
sun goes down.
Yep.
Like,
And then getting in a fight
interesting.
with
Yeah,
Lindsay
Lindsay
Lohan.
Lohan.
Totally believable there.
um, let's see. Oh, this was a fascinating one here too. This reality star from a bar who is supposedly getting married soon is in danger of being left at the altar. Apparently, her significant other is getting tired of all the drama and has quietly been seeing someone else. Now, she did mention in her book that when she first started dating her now husband, he didn't want to be on the show at first. He didn't want to be involved in it at all. But then once he became friends with her friends, he didn't want to miss out. And he had the FOMO AF and decided that he would join the show. What was his role like on Vanderpump Rules?
Uh really boring, quite
Mm,
frankly. Like,
yeah.
sure, like I'm never like too harsh on a show like this, but like there are people that I watch the show for, and then there are people that are like, okay, you're dating someone on the show
Yeah.
and your storyline seems a bit forced. You're kind of in a position where, you know, something's obviously going to rotate around you, but he wore a lot of bow ties. He talked a lot about loving Stassi. I will
Either
say
talk
the
shit or get off the show. You know what I mean?
exactly
Yeah.
the one thing I will give Beau is that he wasn't afraid to actually like be emotional, and it seemed true. It didn't seem forced. And I think whenever you can get raw emotion that is believable on a show like this, that isn't anger, you know,
Yeah.
I I can at least commend that you're being a little bit more believable than a lot of the fronts that are put on these shows.
Oh, yeah. I mean, reality TV, I feel like just in the first few years when it existed as a concept, it was
Oh
so
my
raw.
god.
But now that reality TV serves as this concept to basically get you in Instagram followers and a
Yep.
Fit Tea sponsorship, it really has turned into such a performance. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why, like you said, when you do see that authenticity, I mean, it's rare, but oh God,
It
it's like a
hits.
drug or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, the endorphins rush through. Like I know we're talking Stassi here, but I recently rewatched an episode where James Kennedy proposed to Raquel, and I am not. I was so surprised, and of course they know exactly when to cue the music, and they know exactly when to put off the fireworks, and they know exactly what to do to like get you to feel your feels. But like, I'm not afraid to say like I was welling up because James, like, cards on the table, I don't drink alcohol anymore, and James was struggling with alcohol on the show,
Uh-huh.
and he had like really cleaned up Zep. He was a total asshole, but he was like not this season, and he's like working at it to be better with his girlfriend. And when he proposes to her, it is so genuine, and she is like legitimately shocked and is legitimately like, yes, of course, you know. And it's just like,
Aw.
this this is not scripted. This is like this was good. And I should say, I never, ever got any moments like that from Stassi or Jax or anyone like that.
I'm going to watch that proposal scene after that. You can tell, like, I love going down a YouTube rabbit hole of proposal videos, and some of them you're like, lame. And then other ones you're like crying along with them. They're total strangers. You're like, why am I so, especially when the guy gets down and when the ring comes out and then the girl falls down on the ground next to him too. I always think that's so cute.
Yeah. That's the Rachella episode. So
Rachella.
They go to Coachella, but they've rented out the space because Coachella isn't happening because it's coming out of lockdown.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So it's a very silly episode, which probably helps emphasize the sincere moment in the episode.
Yes. But I do love that.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. Okay, we'll do the two last ones here. One says this B-list reality star from a bar-based reality show has been stalking her ex and has confronted any woman she has seen her ex with. It is getting kind of scary. Stassi Schroeder, stalker? Do you think that would be possible?
100%. 100%, because it's not even about necessarily her caring about her ex anymore.
Yeah.
It's that ex hurt me, and I'm going to make sure that anyone that they're close with knows what a shitty person, like, she just has this like weird vengeful nature.
Which, by the way, stalking is a crime, so Faith should dial 911 and report it. Citizen's arrest.
Yes.
Get her.
Yes.
Okay, and then this last blind says, that Hills show and a bar reality star embarrassed herself at the awards last night with how wasted she was and offended a lot of suits with her comments about some things. She was a mess. I've heard that her drink of choice is Pinot Grigio.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't know what I've done to you, but I'll take a Pinot Grigio.
Yes,
famous line.
She references that in the book. And she said that she used to party hard the first half of Vanderpump, but then kind of cooled off. Who would you say was like the biggest mess on the show? Like go to a red carpet and embarrass themselves?
Oh, man. I would think it would be between Stassi and Kristen. Kristen, like, there's just more evidence of Kristen not being able to hold her alcohol very well. But I could totally see Stassi doing this too by being like overly confident and then having liquid courage on top of that.
So when they had their friendship breakup, whose side were you on?
Oh boy, no one's. But I think that like I would probably be on anyone but Stassi's side, only because Stassi has had the my way or the highway mentality, and like you just can't. Why would anyone want to go back to being friends with you? It's like you're trying to be the boss of a friendship, and that just doesn't make any sense, and it wouldn't be fun to be around.
Yeah.
I do want to say though, real quick, that like all of this is really weird when you look at like the domino effect of Stassi as a human being, because she wanted to be an actor as a young kid. Her family was on like the first season of The Amazing Race. She was on it. She was in another show, I believe that was on MTV, called Queen Bees. And then Vanderpump Rules. So it's like she only went, 5 to 7 years before she was on another show. And I think that really informs a personality when it's all unscripted television.
Yeah. Huh. God, I'd be fascinated. There's some people who, and it's almost like this is going to be such a dark example.
I'm here for it.
I'm going to bring up pedophiles, but it's almost like,
maybe I'm not, but
does the church make people pedophiles, or do pedophiles seek out positions in the churches and the schools because they know that they can be around children? And people typically have said it's the latter, that pedophiles seek out these jobs where they can be around children. And you have to wonder with reality shows, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you join a reality show and the producers and the scenes make you so crazy that you end up snapping and being the worst version of yourself? Or do the worst types of people seek out reality shows and end up on them? I would assume that it's the latter.
Yeah, I think I'm with you because it's fame over anything else, right?
Yeah.
It's I want to be famous, I want to be this, I want to be that. And you can see where, for example, Tom Sandoval, right? Mixed opinions on him on the show. He's been on the show, he wanted to be a musician, he wanted to be all of these things. He ended up being able to go into business with Lisa Vanderpump as a storyline and be a co-owner of one of her bars, Tom Tom, right? And now him and the other Tom started their own bar and restaurant outside of the thumb of Lisa Vanderpump, where it's like, okay, I've grown, and although I have this public facing influencer persona, I actually also know the restaurant business and I've started a restaurant.
Mhm.
Stassi wants fame, wants to be on TV, has enjoyed it her entire life. And now that she's fired from television, is writing books about why she was fired, is writing a book about being an influencer, is still like in that world, even though no one wants her on TV.
You know what's bizarro too? It's like, why do you want to be famous? Some people want it for money. Some people want power. Some people want recognition. Some people want friends. And when I was reading her book, it just she did it seemed like she did not give a shit about her fans at
Mm-hmm.
all. You know,
Yeah.
basically saying, "Oh, but you know, I was glad that people did care and I called them my Khalees or whatever, my
Oh, yeah. Because she was like
Khalasar."
a Game of Thrones
Which,
person.
by the way, great. Like now you ruined Game of Thrones, you bitch. Anyway.
Exactly.
But I just found that so insane too. She's like, and I would check my Facebook sometimes and, you know, like it was great that blah, blah, blah. But I felt no level of, I don't know. It's probably the same for you. Like when I think about someone listening to my podcast, I'm like, that's crazy that like in the car, they put it on and they listened to my voice. Like, how crazy. What an honor. Like, they didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
spend that time out of their day to listen to words out of my mouth, but they did. That's so impactful. And it just feels like, what does she want to be famous for? I feel like she doesn't give a shit about anyone that follows her or her fans or wanting to do right by them.
No, I completely agree. And I think that she wants to be Stassi, and she wants to be her, and she wants to be able to do what she wants to do and not get canceled. But
So do you think she
it,
wants like the freedom of actions? Do you think she wants her name to be notarized? Do you think she wants to be photographed? Like I'm just trying to think of like what's in it for her. What does she want?
yeah, I think she wants the freedom of actions, and she likes seeing
She wants to be able
herself
to do whatever the fuck she wants without
whatever the fuck she
consequence.
wants without consequence. Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh, sick, dude. Nobody should be able to do that. Isn't
No,
that
there's
crazy?
something about, and I know I've said it a million times, but there's something about learning from your mistakes, you know,
Yeah.
like, and she probably would get what she wants if everything she did was not disingenuous, or at least coming off as disingenuous.
Yeah. Damn. Now, the last thing I want to ask you about is, you know, obviously I need to know more about all of these Vanderpump characters, but Lala Kent, she stuck out to me from the first episode you made me watch.
Yeah.
She looks completely different now, almost like a different person. No shade. There she is.
Have her book, Gifting Lala,
Lala.
did not make the New York Times bestsellers.
Ugh,
Um, yeah,
tragedy.
I know.
But
Didn't buy
I
enough
saw
copies.
her on Juicy Scoop and they were talking about the Balenciaga drama and Lala
Mm-hmm.
was really getting into it. Now, I think since then Heather McDonald has gone a little satanic panic about the situation.
Yeah.
But before they did that, I was listening like fist pumping the air like, yeah, you guys talk about it. Just the minute you mentioned Satan, now you
Yeah.
lost me. But would you say that out of all the stars, like her name is the one that I see the most? Would you say that she has the if the Vanderpump Rules characters were stocks and you had to invest in one, would Lala be the stock you invest in, or would it be someone else?
It would be someone else. I think that, like, I go back and forth with Lala because I think she is very phony in a way
Mm.
that, like, how she relates with people and like the cultures she surrounds herself with. But then, like, I mean, I haven't
Which,
read
by
the
the way,
whole thing.
what cultures does she surround her? Is this like the rich people in LA? Is this
I think she wants to be rich and famous, but she also like wants to be in the hip hop culture, and like
oh okay.
I think that she said things on the show that are just like, damn, you are you grew up Mormon in Utah, so you're like
Oh, that
trying to
explains.
compensate for
Yeah.
that. You know, I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah.
what it is. I could be way off, but that's just the vibe I've gotten from her. I
Okay.
think that, but when I like hear some of the things she talks about in her book or whatever, she is very much an incredibly outspoken feminist, and I love that part about her. I just think she misses the mark a lot whenever she's on camera, and I think that
Mm.
she has, for the most part, the right intention, but is too focused on trying to be really cool while having good intentions
Ugh,
that it
yeah.
kind of cancels it out, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. But if I were to put my money on someone,
Yeah.
this is going to be a controversial take, but
Oh,
it would
you
be,
which by the way, I'm going on Lisa. I know she doesn't count, but every time I see her on camera, I go, "Oh, Lisa, she's got everything."
yeah, Lisa's, I feel like I'm going to put Lisa out because she's already there. Yeah. But
Yeah, she yeah.
I would say Tom Sandoval or Sheena Shea. And
Okay.
just because I
Okay.
think they have the most consistent like level of success, but also like not trying to strive for much more than their means, you know.
Yeah, and like that mean girl drama petty character, fun to watch in a show, but you wouldn't want to invest in them, you know?
Yep. And I think that like, you know, I've got a soft spot next to Peter. Like Peter's just a good person. Sheena's the only cast member that has done the podcast without question, without like, well, what is this going to be about? Are we going to have to dance around this? She's just like, yeah, let's come on, let's have fun, let's have a conversation, you know?
Mm.
And
Well,
so,
which speaking of which, first of all, you and I on Sunday, because this
oh,
episode will be
yeah,
coming out tomorrow, we're going to be talking live at 3 p.m. More Vanderpump Rules. I'll be putting a link up to it
yeah.
everywhere that you guys see this. But in terms of your podcast, tell us a little bit more before we end here about what you've done before and what people can expect in the future.
Yeah, the podcast is called Vanderpump Robs. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. There's also a Patreon where I put bonus content out. What it started at was just a go through each episode with a guest and talk about it. And I still do that for the most part, but it's expanded to the universe. So, like, sometimes I'll bring on like comedian Tim Barnes and we'll talk about what if Vanderpump Rules was set in space and like talk about what it would look like there. Or we did a Game of Thrones episode behind the paywall, like what if Vanderpump Rules and that universe
Oh
mixed.
God, that's a really good concept. Yeah.
I had another person come on once that I had to put behind the paywall, but he was like in defense of Jax, the like terrible dude who cheated on everyone. And that was just a fun thought experiment. Currently, I've got a new co host. Her name's Molly Schwartz. She's awesome. She's a reporter and she's done some incredible work. And having that sort of thought process, talking about reality TV, has been so incredibly fun. We did an episode where we talked all about Raquel, who we spoke about earlier, who is definitely having quite the year. We'll see more on that on the upcoming show. But we're
Ooh.
following Winter House, which is another Bravo show where there's some Vanderpump crossover this season. It's just a hell of a lot of fun. We don't take ourselves too serious. It's primarily a comedy podcast, but we do talk about the real issues and like the implications and um, you know, stuff,
Sociopaths on the
culture.
show.
Yeah, the sociopaths on the show. Yeah, the narcissistic behaviors that get us and get them all in trouble. So,
I love those the Game of Thrones one is fun too. It's you see
yeah.
that for TikTok videos too. Like the cast of Gossip Girl, like who would they vote for in 2020?
Yeah,
Or like how would they handle COVID? I think this is different because, instead of
sure.
characters, these are real people. So sometimes you have the answer, but that's such a fun idea.
Yeah, and
Okay, well,
if people can check it out, I would really appreciate it. But
yeah.
honestly, Shannon, having me on the podcast has been freaking awesome. I love talking about all of this and being able to dissect Stassi in this sort of way.
Yeah.
It's been a hell of a lot
Well,
of
it's
fun.
fun for me. And I want to apologize for being such a 101 on all of this, but it's fun to dive in as like a total beginner and kind of
Oh
like
yeah.
learn about this, even though I know I'm like 8 years late to the game.
Well, some of my favorite episodes are when it's people's first episodes, like when you came on. I was just like, no, here's the episode to watch, and
Yeah.
you don't need to have any other context. Yeah,
And it was great. So if anyone wants to get into Vanderpump Rules, like you do not need to start at, the pilot episode. The whole thing is good.
but you will eventually
Yeah.
go back and do that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And folks, I'm going to have the link to our live show. And is that live show going to be recorded other places too, or is it Be
I do
There or
believe
Be
it's going to
Square?
be available after it goes live, but it's all on YouTube. The network I'm a part of is the Sonar Network, so it's their YouTube page. But yeah, Shannon will put the link up. I'll put the link up on my socials, and if you do miss it, we will provide it, and I will be recording it anyway, so I'll send you the footage
Yay.
if you would like to use it.
Fabulous. All right. Well, thank you for coming on, and we will maybe see you guys Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard.